am recording this meeting, and I started that recording now.
Okay, well, now I'm going to officially call the meeting to order. I want to thank everybody for being here. And I want to thank everybody for all the hard work they've done over the last year, or the last month, really. And so away we go. Oh, and I will also make the same announcement. As you know, because of COVID, we are holding our meetings now remotely. And as a result of that, we are recording the meetings and videotaping them. And so if you don't want to be recorded, get off the Zoom. But if you're on the Zoom and you're participating, you will be recorded. And the planning board has a YouTube site that we use. And so after the meeting is over, we will be posting this on our YouTube site if anybody wants to go back and watch it. So that's where we're at. So with calling that to order, the first order of business is to approve the agenda. So do I have a motion by anybody to approve the agenda?
So moved.
I got Sam and a second by Tina. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Looks like I got everybody. Don, I can't see your hand. You're up.
A
Okay.
point of order, please.
Go ahead, Don.
Yeah, there was a request to add an item to the agenda. Is the chair not recognizing that, or where do we stand on that?
I think Margaret and I went back and forth on that. I think we're okay. We're going to put it on the June agenda.
Okay, would I be remiss in asking if sometime during this meeting, we put the board on record that it wants to be an action item on the June agenda, and that we respectfully invite Member Campbell or someone of her office to present her side at that meeting?
Sure, we can do that. We can do that. And I think it's Margaret's going to do that. So when she makes her report for long range planning, she can talk about that.
That's fine.
Yeah. Okay.
I vote yes.
Okay. All right. We have an approved agenda. And with that, we get to do the officer reports, and I will go first on that. Oh, no, we get to do the approval of the minutes first. Sorry. Has everybody had a chance to review the minutes that Mandy prepared? Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
I so move.
Okay. Corla, second by Paul Webb. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Aye.
It appears to have passed unanimously. And for the record, Mandy, nothing against any of our previous secretaries, but you're doing a great job. You're just doing a great job. You're doing a wonderful job on that. All right. So now with the officer reports, I'll start as chair. I just want to say it's been an exciting month, and I really like the enthusiasm on the board. We've had a lot of exciting things. You know, we have Officer Hayes coming. We got Supervisor Nora Vargas coming today, and we've got a lot of good interaction that we'll see with Ocean Beach and with Midway. And we've had some contact with the city regarding the pocket park. And, you know, internally for Point Loma, I just think the committee leaders are all doing an excellent job, long range planning, traffic, parks, environmental. And so, and of course, our bread and butter project review, Joe, great job. So things are moving forward. So great job. And we're going to have a fun meeting. So with that, as the first vice chair, do you have any report, Margaret?
No, I have to agree with you. We took off kicking butt in some of these committees, and we had to, because as you all know, and I apologize with all the emails that I have sent, but there is a lot coming down the pipeline that affects not just our community, but Ocean Beach, Midway, the peninsula as a whole. So I'm very impressed, and I'm very thankful that people are attending our meetings that we're holding with the community. We had an amazing long-range planning meeting with some guest speakers, touching base on the majority of the big projects that are coming our way in different neighborhoods. And we had an incredible show up. And most important to me was representation from Ocean Beach and Midway. That to me, bridging the gap there as far as communication goes, so we can go back to our own boards and our community would be great. I am disappointed in District 2 representation. I asked them to attend this very important meeting for the long range planning, because it is the future of our community. No comment there. You know, just want to see more leadership as far as the city goes to support us in some of these these projects coming our way. So that's for me. Thank you, everyone. Excellent job on the committees.
Thank you, Margaret. Brad, do you have anything that you'd like to report as second vice chair?
I don't have anything to report, but I might make a comment during non-agenda comment.
Okay. Corla, do you have a treasurer's report?
Do you want that now or at the expense reimbursement? We can do
Let's-
that now,
we-
but later. We
let's
can
do
do
that
that
later then.
later and let our speakers speak if that's okay.
Yep, yep. All right, and Mandy, anything to add from the secretary's perspective?
Nope, nothing new. Thank you.
All right, well then we're gonna go right to our first speaker. And Andrew, I really appreciate you reaching out, and Supervisor Vargas, I really appreciate you coming here. I call you the real deal because, you know, you're a real elected, you know, person, right? And it's important to the Point Loma community to have you come and talk to us about the issues that you think are important. And so Andrew's been doing a great job supporting us. We really like Andrew, but we're honored to have you here. So we'd like to have you give your thoughts on some current issues, and then we might have a few questions.
Really quickly before we start, Fred, you have public comment. I don't know if we've got people from the community that we're expecting to speak under public comment.
Yeah, you'll see on the agenda is that I put Supervisor
find
Vargas
it.
and then I put Officer Cirilla, but we have Officer Hayes in his place, and then we're going to do
Oh, okay.
public comment after that.
Okay, thank you, because I can't find I can't
Yeah,
get on.
We'll definitely have that.
Thanks.
All right, Supervisor Vargas, welcome.
Oh, thank you, Fred, and thank you, everyone. Good evening. I am so happy to be here with all of you. It's an honor for me to have an opportunity to share, to be with all of you. Not only do I get to be your District 1 representative on the Board of Supervisors, but I also have the honor of serving as the Vice Chair of the board, which allows me for a lot of opportunities to do really good work on our behalf of the community. And I will say that I wish I was there in person. But I'm looking forward to whenever you meet in person to come and see you. But I'm glad that at least we're doing virtually. My goal is to try to, as you know, District 1 is a huge district, but my goal is to try to make sure that obviously my team members and all of you had a chance to meet Andrew, that they're here with you at the meetings. And then I'm going to try to visit at least once a quarter so that I am able to connect with you. But if for some reason I'm not, you always know where to get a hold of me and how to see how I can help you, because we're here to serve first and foremost. And so for those of you that don't know me, I just wanted to make sure that I start off by saying that really my commitment to community is really rooted in my, my family values and my love for community really for over 25 years. I think for 25 years, I really focused on making sure that I removed barriers for underserved communities through civic engagement, public policy, and community organizing. And I was raised in this region. I'm really proud to always share with folks that I am binational, and so I have a very unique perspective about the Centennial community and who we are. And so, and know that my passion to serve is really driven by my desire to improve people's lives in our communities. I really want to make a difference. And, the reason why I ran for office, and I'm sharing this with you, is because I want to make sure that you know where this is coming from and how I make my decisions in terms of budgets and ARPA funding and the work that we're doing and the direction that we're going on. And really, I am not someone that makes decisions based on party line, but instead I do everything based on the community and the needs that we have. And so I don't take this responsibility lightly. We had Supervisor Cox representing us for over 25 years. And for me to be able to be in this role really is something that I don't take for granted. And I ran because I really saw firsthand that a lot of our children were going to sleep hungry. Our students, when I was at Southwestern College, I was a trustee there. And I think many of you may know that I was a healthcare advocate and executive for over 20 years for a local reproductive healthcare organization, Planned Parenthood. And for me, really, is really trying to figure out how the county can do a better job to serve the needs of the community. That's really why I ran for office. And so I've been your supervisor now since January 4th. We hit the ground running, and it's been an amazing opportunity. I have really focused, we had to transition from, from the campaign, really focused on COVID, right? It's been about over a year now that we were impacted by the global pandemic. There's been pockets of, particularly our District 1, that have been absolutely hit by the pandemic at a disproportionately, impact. And so I was very proud that I have been able to serve as the co-chair of the COVID subcommittee. And that has allowed for me to have an opportunity to really look at the work from an equity lens and really make sure that those folks that wanted to get vaccinated had access to those vaccinations and being able to do it in an equitable and efficient way. So for me, that was something that I thought was extremely important for us to do. I want to share that I think we're doing well. I think if you, every week we do an update, a press conference update on where we are with COVID and vaccines and testing. And I'm proud to say that I think we've reached, 69, I think it was 65% of the population is vaccinated, and we need 75 to hit herd immunity. Many of you know that young people are now able to get their vaccines. And so we are doing everything we can to get out there so that people have, those that choose to have vaccines, that they have access to them. And we did everything we could to be able to, really break down barriers. I know it was really tough at the beginning, particularly with technology for some folks, and then language and just access. It was really tough, but now I think that we don't have a problem with vaccine accessibility. We're able to really make sure that everybody has it who wants it. And so a lot of our efforts right now is really how do we make sure, like I said, COVID-19 really impacted our communities, not only health, but economic hardship for individuals, families, and our business communities. And some folks had already been struggling and having a hard time. And so what we're really trying to do is do what we can so that we can help stimulate economic recovery in a very equitable manner. And so it's going to not only depend on, people having access to vaccines, but economic support for those that have struggled the most. I am excited to say that we have a couple of huge initiatives that we've worked on, right? I think all of you know, we hit the ground running by declaring racism a public health care crisis. And really that has helped us really look at the work that we're doing from an equitable lens. Health equity was another big issue. And really what I did is trying to bring our South County region together to really think about what does this look like moving forward, and really partner with our communities and businesses to really find answers for the next steps. The environment has been a really important issue for me. I wanted to fulfill my promise of addressing the climate crisis in San Diego County and really focused on environmental policy justice initiatives. And just yesterday, we introduced the Office of Environment and Climate Justice, which I think will have a really big impact in all of the region as well. Really focused on our youth by making sure we have, additional opportunities for jobs, green jobs for our youth. Was able to introduce a Voice and Men of Color letter to really focus on making sure that our communities had what they need. And then I'm really proud to share that we are really pushing a Little Libraries initiative. And, might think, well, why is that so important? And, one of the things that we have to make sure we do is that we're preparing the workforce of the future. And one of the challenges that we have, particularly in our communities, is a lot of folks, it's taking a long time for them to be able to transfer to universities or other programs because of reading and writing skills. And so we're doing everything we can to make sure that people have access. And so this Little Libraries initiative is going to be very helpful to make sure that people have access. I think that as your supervisor, I want to hear from you, and I want to hear firsthand, some of the things that I can be helpful for. Like I said, Andrew's here to help and to serve. Really, for me, public healthcare is one of my number one priorities. I'm really concerned about what it's going to look like post-COVID, right? There is a lot of work that needs to be done, a lot of people who don't have access to healthcare. And what can we do as a county to partner up not only with community organizations, but with others? We are in the process of the budget process right now. So I think that if there's anything that you're thinking of that you see, like, big issues that you want us to make sure that we are addressing, please, please, please don't hesitate to share with us. I'll have Andrew put his information on the chat. I think you might have it already, but we are in the process right now of distributing our ARPA funding, which is the funding from the federal government. We are very thorough in how we are going to be dispersing those funds. I'm really committed to making sure that small businesses have access to additional resources, but not just your typical small businesses, but other, like event planners, nail salons, barbers, all the folks who may have not qualified for funding before, events, etc. And so that's like a really fast way of giving you an update about where we are at. There's a lot of work that's been going on. And, if hopefully all of you have already signed up for my newsletter, we try to send a newsletter, bi-weekly update, and then a newsletter each month to let you know what we've been doing. And, I think what I want to make sure you know from me is that I am here to serve and to listen, and whatever I can do to help you and make sure that your quality of life is better. I am always here, ready and available to listen. We may or not agree on everything all the time, but you're always going to have someone who's going to be listening to you and learning from you as well. And the community of Point Loma is very important to me. And whatever I can do to help and to support, I'm here to do that, including initiatives that you may have coming before the San Diego City Council, or any issues around the state or federal level where you need either letters of support or anything else that you need from me. I'm happy to do that. I keep telling people, let's think about outside the box and utilize my role as your supervisor to do the best that we can to advance our community. So I'm happy to be here, and I'll take any questions, so that I think that, anything you need from me.
Well, perfect. Thank you, Supervisor Vargas. I really appreciate that. That's great to hear. And I just think that it is, Margaret kind of alluded that. With COVID ending, it's going to be a unique time. And I think everybody's going to be reevaluating it. And I just want to thank the county. I think you've done a great job by getting 69% of the people vaccinated right now. And so now the tricky part is still to, get the economy going, getting people working, and taking care of the, underserved and the most vulnerable at the same time. So that's a lot for anybody to do. So that's my comment. But with that, I don't know if anybody has a question for Supervisor Vargas. Nicole, I see you. You can go first.
Great, thanks, Fred, and thank you, Supervisor Nora Vargas, for being here. Hope you guys can hear me okay. Great to have you here, and great to have the updates. And I really appreciate your voice on the Sandag Transportation Board. So as an advocate for safe, healthy, and our youth, it's always been a prime audience for me, our youth, and then our military. And so with your district, you have a very, very diverse district, as well as I think you have the 5 downtown military bases, really. You have a lot of military. So I've been, actually a few of us actually on this board have actually been participants at the Sandag Military Working Board, as they've worked on a multi-access community grant, for all their they're going into the bases, right? Their lines going into and how much traffic is inundated. And one of those priorities that came out of that study was the Rosecrans corridor. And I think it's really a valuable time to look. We just recently had a couple deaths on Rosecrans, pedestrian deaths. It's a horribly dangerous corridor. And that military base is right down on the point and has potential to really, as Sandag would say, a complete corridor. So something that maybe your office can look into, and just look forward to working on with you and other initiatives. Something else maybe I throw out there is Supervisor Nathan Fletcher and Mayor Gloria have been working on an EIFD, which I'm not totally 100% familiar with, but it's for the San Diego River. And so I know you're a big advocate and supporter for our watersheds. And so maybe those watersheds in your districts we can evaluate as a bigger picture. But that's this being focused on Peninsula, that traffic in and out of our community because of military. I'd love to see them really embrace a healthy way to move to those places and destinations. So thanks for being here again, Al.
Thank you, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate you bringing up the that I actually happen to be on a lot of committees. I am the chair of Transportation for Sandag, and very important committees for our communities, and so I am proud to have that responsibility. But I think use me as your vehicle for change for some of these committees, right? I mean, you are my constituents, and like I say to some of the folks in North County that say, well, you know, you're not my constituent, but can you help on this issue? Because nobody's paying attention to me. I'm like, I'm happy to do that. But I'm also the chair of the Air Pollution Control District. And that's another really important issue for our communities, air quality. I mean, we have the highest rates of asthma and pollution in South County area. So that's another important issue. And then I'm also vice chair of the Regional Homeless Task Force. So whatever I can do there for you, you know, I mean, so think about, and all of this stuff is on my Supervisor Nora Vargas page. So if you want to look at that and think about like an issue that you care about and you want to make sure that I'm advocating as your champion, I'm happy to look at it. And so we will go ahead and look at the corridor, Nicole, and we'll follow up with you to see what we can do. And I am not on that military-based committee, but I can make sure that we get information to see where things are and help in any way we can.
Okay, do we have any other questions? Robert, did you have one?
Yes. Well, thank you, Supervisor, for coming out. I know a couple of weeks ago, the county made some extensions with COVID regarding tenant controls and landlord. And I was just going to ask you what or you can just shoot me your email if you like, but we have a situation where it's not a hardship, but it's more of a nuisance and a bunch of problems going on with a tenant.
Mm-hmm.
And we were advised with these county measures that they would have to be brandishing a weapon towards another tenant to get them out because of these current protections. Is that the case, or is that overstated?
No, not at all. I think there was also a lot of misinformation on this issue, so that you know, it was a temporary fix to under the emergency, and so I think it's going to be lifted in August. There's already been some legal fights on it and stuff, but what I'll do is I'll put my email right here, and you feel free to reach out to me, and I'll connect you to the right folks so that you can get help that you need. Which actually reminds me, if you know of landlords that are interested in rental assistance piece, folks that you may know, friends or other connections, let them know, right? The governor made sure that people are able to get 100% of the rents now, right? That shifted. And so before it was only 80%. And I think that's really powerful because, we want to make sure that, landlords are not left dry if somebody doesn't pay for the rent. So I think, I want to make sure we do that as best we can. So I'm going to put my email on here, and you can all reach out to me anytime. And, and I want to be very clear. And I think, the one thing that you should know about me is I am somebody that you can always reach out to if you have any questions or concerns. And, sometimes people, they share a lot of misinformation that I think, to scare people off from what's really happening, and just know that there is no, I am not out to get landlords, small business owners, or any folks like that. This is just a temporary solution that we were trying to find for some of the folks in getting a lot of calls from people who were being evicted, even though they weren't supposed to be evicted. So I think there's a good balance for us to work together. And I think that if you have thoughts or ideas of ways that I can also support some of our small mom and pop landlords, I'm happy to work on policy to help our communities as well. On that end.
Well, that's
Okay,
perfect.
good. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Well, Supervisor Vargas, we have a lot going on tonight and I know you're busy, so we're going to let you go. Thank you. And we will look forward to having you come again sometime and we'll,
Yes.
we'll have Andrew too.
I'll see you soon. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you for everything.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. All right. Our second special guest is, we used to have Officer Cirillo used to come to our meetings regularly, and it's been, I think, over a year, and we invited him, but he couldn't make it, but he did send Officer Michael Hayes to give us an update on the local situation with the police force in Point Loma. So Officer Hayes, we welcome you here. And I think we would like to get a little bit of an update of what's going on with the community.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. Dave sends us apologies. He wanted to be here, but some stuff came up. I think I've actually been to a couple of these meetings in the past, so some of you may remember me. I'll try not to be super long-winded. We just had shift change last weekend, and what that means is the officers all rotate backwards in shifts. So if you were a day watch officer, you go to graveyards. If you're graveyards, you go to second watch. If you're second watch, you go to day watch. And then your days off change. So if you were working graveyards and you had weekends off, you're now working second watch with weekends on. So for everyone in the community, that's important to remember because these officers have been working a shift for the last 4 months in an area. They keep them in the same area, but the problems, everyone knows, they kind of change with the time of day. So if it's, in an area where there's bars and stuff, then obviously the bigger problems are going to come up at night when the drinking. If it's an area like the beach, that can have problems all day long. So you're going to see different officers depending on when you're calling the police. And it's incumbent on both of us, but also you guys to call and know that the officer who's showing up, he hasn't been working the shift or these days for the last 4, maybe even 8 months. So if you got to bring them up to speed on an ongoing issue, just give them a little extra time to learn that or explain it to them. And then we're also coming into the summer shift. So Western has allocated a couple extra officers to the full-time beach team. And, they work from OB and Dog Beach all the way down to the tip of the point. And that kind of has a twofold impact. Those officers are specifically there to address issues pertaining to the beach, the bar crowds in OB, and then that frees up all of the regular patrol officers to continue to respond to all the regularly generated radio calls throughout, Ocean Beach and Point Loma. We've also increased the staffing for all the holidays. There's an incredible amount of overtime for everything from Memorial Day through Labor Day. And, with all that extra presence, we're hoping to kind of keep the lid on everything, keep a nice, smooth, easy flow for summer for everyone, for the residents, for the people who come down to visit. We expect to have probably pretty sizable crowds with, the COVID restrictions coming to an end and everything opening up, and San Diego being a pretty wonderful destination as it is, but then the beaches in particular. So, Western command staff and all the officers, to include the full-time beach team, they all have plans in place to kind of address these issues and be, a resource for the community. So that's kind of where we're at for Western Division and, from OB to the point. Are there any questions?
Yeah, well, I just want to say thank you for being here because,
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Yeah. It's an important job and we appreciate your service. So I think I saw Sam. Did you have a question?
Yeah. Well, first off, I want to also thank you for being here, and I appreciate very much the efforts that you people do on our behalf. I wondered if you could give us any kind of an update, and let me give you the background for this question. One of my neighbors in my community is a fire marshal, and he says he spends an awful lot of time down at what I used to call the Quality Inn. I'm not sure what the name is now, but do you feel that area has settled down in the Point Loma area, or do we still have a lot of issues there?
I think it's still called the Quality Inn. Sorry,
Okay.
my internet's
Sorry
kind of
about
crashing, but right now we've had some issues countywide with all of the hotels and motels, and I don't have the list in front of me. I'm at home right now. But with COVID, there were county and city initiatives where they were not only renting large blocks within, certain hotels to keep people who were presumptive COVID positive or that needed to be quarantined. They also expanded initiatives in an effort to reduce the spread of COVID, where they were bringing homeless people off the street and providing them vouchers to stay at these hotels. And those were county initiatives, and I don't know the full details and the full hotels. And I don't know if the vouchers they issued are like essentially like cash cards where they could go to any motel or hotel, but we have seen an increase in quality of life issues at getting more frequent calls about issues at these locations. But I think they're starting to taper down on housing transients with COVID and trying to move transients from locations into motels. So that's kind of all tapering down. So I think that's one of those things where we might just have to kind of wait a bit and see how it shakes out.
Thank you very much for
You're
your
welcome.
input.
Matt, go ahead. You have a question?
Yes, thank you. And thanks for your time, Michael.
Yeah.
So in the peninsula,
Oh,
especially.
Hold on, I'm losing my internet. Can you hear me?
Yes, you're
Yeah,
there.
yeah. Yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you. I'm getting a box on my window that says your internet connection is unstable. Everyone's frozen.
Okay, we can still hear you.
Okay,
Why don't you go ahead, Matt? Ask the question and see how it goes.
All right. So yeah, my question was about I know bicycle theft is a problem in the peninsula, in a lot of our beach communities, and kind of citywide. In some of the bicycle community, there's been, I would say, some troubling escalation of rhetoric regarding people being frustrated and perhaps wanting to go take matters into their own hands. I was curious, from the police department standpoint, is there a bait bicycle program that is being run? And if not, what would it take to get it up and running again?
There is a bait bicycle program. In fact, I just had a part of my other responsibilities. I have a collateral responsibility right now where I handle misdemeanor cases and other cases, but I see the cases that come through. And I know in the last week, I saw a bait bike case that came through the office, and one of the detectives handled it. That particular, those particular operations are run generally by Western Division's crime suppression team. And they're like a proactive street team that generally works from 2 to midnight or 5 in the afternoon till 3 in the morning. And they're out there with the bait bike when they have the available time. It's those bait bike operations are, they kind of wrap up everybody on the team for an unknown amount of time to arrest one individual. Does that make sense? Because you need a whole bunch of people to like surround the bait bike and wait in plain clothes, and then one person steals it, and then it, that's kind of that operation for, at least in that area, for half the day. So they have to budget that time, and like everyone everywhere, manpower and time, those are always issues that reduce your ability to do all the things that you want to do. And I know the officers who do those cases, they love the bait bike cases because oftentimes on bicycles, so it's a lot safer, and then they can take these people into custody, and it's a slam dunk. So we do have a bait bike program, and it's definitely up and in effect. And I can tell them that I'm going to these meetings, and people are telling me they really like the bait bike operations, so maybe you guys should do some more of them.
Cool. Well, I appreciate that update. Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a
Angela?
question.
Go ahead, Angela.
Where Correa Junior High is, there are a lot of small campers and pop-up tents, that people will park their RVs, to kind of live on the street. My concern is, there are young kids that, walk to school now, school's back in session. Some may have to go, sooner than others. And it just doesn't seem safe that these big RVs and campers are allowed to just kind of hang out there, especially it would be easy access for them, somebody to just grab somebody and then take off on the freeway. So I don't see much done about making sure that people aren't living in those on the streets.
So as of, I think, I want to say, let me look at the calendar here. I want to say it was maybe the 12th, those restrictions started to lighten, but during the entire period of COVID, people who were living in their car had a right to live in their cars. That was a place they could quarantine. So we could not take those people out of their car and impound their car and then make them de facto homeless, you know, in the area wherever we took the car. So those regulations, as far as we're getting direction from the county on this, because it's a health related issue, and they're the drivers behind those procedures that we follow. Those have been re-examined, and I think they're coming to a conclusion now, especially if we get to herd immunity, where we can go back to our older program, which we were doing pre-COVID, which is, it's still progressive enforcement, where we have to contact these people. We have to document several cases. We can escalate then to like a misdemeanor citation, a certain amount of citations. We can do an arrest, or we can take their car. So it's still a process that we have to follow and we have to go through. But we had essentially had to stop that because ultimately it leads to taking somebody's vehicle away, which during that period of time was their safe space to quarantine. So if you have, an issue like that, please use the Get It Done app and update, those complaints, get the people in your area to put that on Get It Done, because that's a quality of life issue that's handled by the neighborhood policing division. And their primary way that they get dispatched and sent to these calls is through Get It Done. So if you call 531-2000 or 911 for an emergency, you get like a Western patrol cop. So I work Western Division as a police officer, but we respond to what you would traditionally think of as your bread and butter police calls, like a domestic violence. You hear your neighbors screaming and it escalates to a fist fight, 911. Bank robberies, if you've got people who are stealing stuff from stores, that's us. We have this other, it's a full-blown command. They're the ones who drive around in the Ford F-150s with the big metal Tommy gates. And that's so they can address homeless issues. And they have, connections with the homeless outreach team. And they're the ones who they can go to those calls, and they have more access to resources to provide these people. So please put that on the Get It Done app, and they will respond to those, like oversized vehicle ordinance, camping, parking, and those areas. That's exclusively what they do. And they exclusively essentially get dispatched to Get It Done.
Well, thank you. I've tried that avenue and it doesn't seem to work very well, but.
Have you gotten responses back from them?
No.
So that's the other thing. We might want to reach out to Officer Llewellyn, who works the neighborhood policing. I was actually just speaking with him 2 days ago, and essentially they have around 55 officers, and they get close to 750 calls a week. And each one of those calls is essentially something where you're like what you explained. It's a person in an RV, or it's a homeless person, or it's cleaning out a camp. So each one of those calls, I'm sure you can imagine, they take quite a bit of time. And then like if an arrest or crime is discovered, that time obviously goes up. So they're very constricted, but they have to dispo each call. So if you've put something into that app and you haven't gotten a receipt of action where they'll tell you like, well, we did this, or we couldn't do this, and we tried to do that, and that's the limitations of what we can do, that means they haven't been out to it yet, but it's still technically on their board of calls that they will have to address.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a full agenda, so we're gonna have one last question, and then we're gonna let you go, and we're gonna invite you back again, Officer Hayes. So Margaret, go ahead.
Quick question. I run the Point Loma Neighborhood Watch Group and all the social media pages that go with it. And we used to have meetings with Officer Cerullo every couple months. And now I'm getting bombarded all of a sudden. I just have been so busy. But the question that the community is asking is about the Point Loma Neighborhood Watch signs that you could put up on the streets and all that good stuff. I guess a lot of them around Point Loma High School are deteriorating and you can't read them and they're just all mangled up. What is the best way that I can communicate to the neighbors on where to get those appropriate signs, and can they install them themselves?
There's two answers to this. There's the city way, which takes an infinite amount of time. We don't issue the signs. They come through like a city, almost like a traffic division, because it's, signage. They approve it, they issue one. It's a big, lengthy process. If you go on to Amazon.com and you type in neighborhood watch sign, you can see that they have several very appropriate signs. And if you guys are placing them in a reasonable area and it's, a normal thing, we're not going to go out and rip your signs down. And they sell the 3M aluminum back, reflector eyes, the blue and white with the eye, and they have the, the one where it's like the guy with the hat. They sell all those online. You can buy them, you can put them up. I think they range in between like $12 and $20, depending on how big and the decals on them. And that's the most effective way that we've discovered. If you want to get the signs and put them up, that's probably the most effective way.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
All right. Well, thank you, Officer Hayes, and tell Officer Cyril that we're going to invite you guys back. Okay.
Great. Thank you so much. Everyone have a good night. Goodbye.
Okay. We had a question about non-agenda comment, and now we're at that point of the meeting. So we have non-agenda comment, and anybody who would like to make a non-agenda comment, please raise your hand and we'll get you your 2 minutes. I saw Corla first. So Corla, start us off.
Yeah, I'd like to comment that Mark Krensick and I toured the Montserrats on Monday, and I know they're having open tours, and it was a very nice presentation, very interesting. They're not together completely yet. They're not quite open, but the most interesting part was at the end of the tour, Mark and I both piped up and said, hey, can we see the parking? Because we've reviewed this project for several years. And they did most of their demolition and construction during COVID, which was kind of lucky for them in a way. And so we got to have our first view of parking elevators. They don't have their curb painted yet, and their loading zone isn't approved yet, but you come around and you pull in and the valet takes your car, and there's 2 car elevators that take the cars down and park them and back up and down. So that was very interesting, something we wanted to see implemented. And then I also like to announce a Navwar revitalization comment period is available now until July 13th. And that's it.
All right. I think, Margaret, I saw your hand second, so go ahead.
Just really quickly, Ocean Beach Town Council couldn't be here tonight, so I'm just want to make a little quick note to the community about Make Your Voices Heard. It's a town hall meeting that they'll be hosting, a really important one actually on May 26th to discuss the city's long-term plans for the Ocean Beach Pier. Mark, the president of Ocean Beach Town Council, spoke at my long-range planning meeting and gave us a good feel of all the stuff that they need our support on. I'll elaborate that more into my report for long-range planning, but the most important public comment I want to make is for this town hall meeting, which they will be inviting local, state, and federal representatives to attend the town hall meeting, and will allow you to weigh in directly with your questions and concerns on this important topic. The important thing to note is that you have to register to get the Zoom link for this meeting. So in order to get the Zoom link, you can go to obtowncouncil.org/membership. It's free, there's no fee. And then they'll email you the link for this town hall meeting. You can find more information on obtowncouncil.org and also on their Facebook pages. And then I believe I sent the board this flyer, but it's a really important deal because it sounds like it's a really long plan, and with budgets and everything, the community really definitely wants the pier to open up again. So this is your chance to speak up on that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Margaret. I worked with Mark from the OB Town Council on a few things. He's a good guy and he's a helpful guy for the community. So, and speaking of our friends from OB, we have the OB planning group. Tracy, you got a public comment?
I don't have anything for the planning group right now, but this is non-agenda public comment anyways. But I just wanted to let you guys know, in my commissioner role for the San Diego Commission for Arts and Culture, I just wanted to announce that there is a shuttered venue operator grant that is now open. And the Shutter Venue Operators Grant Program was established in the Economic Aid to Hard Hit Small Businesses, Nonprofits and Venue Act, and amended by the American Rescue Plan to provide over $16.2 billion in economic relief to targeted industries. The grant is available to organizations that are like live venue operators, theater producers, live performing arts organizations, museum operators, movie theater operators, and many more. The grant opportunity is open now. I'm going to post the URL. So if you know anybody who has a shuttered venue and could benefit from this grant, I would encourage them to apply. And I'll also put in my contact information for the commission and the Twitter account information for the commission as well. So you can keep up on deadlines and exciting things that are happening in arts and culture. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Tracy. Does anybody else have a non-agenda public comment? Brad, go ahead.
I just want to comment, last meeting, Nicole brought it up, and it's something that we rarely talk about, or really kind of never. I mean, Supervisor Vargas touched on it, but every day you can read something about climate change. And increasingly it's become more of a climate emergency. And it just seems as though a lot of the things that we're voting on and talking about are all driven by, you know, changes that are happening because the status quo that we all grew up with is no longer. We have worldwide and national responses, or, you know, with the Paris Climate Accord, you know, all the way down to the city and our climate action plan. But at the local level, we rarely touch on the reality of this, what we are going to be leaving as a legacy to our children. And it's recently I was reading, feel free to look it up yourself, but about heat indexes, the relationship between temperature and humidity and human survivability. And this has potential in the next 50 years to, and sorry, I'm not trying to be a downer here, but, you know, to cause just absurd amounts of human relocation, because people will be unable to live in areas of the world where they presently do, and we're talking potentially 1 billion people. So I'm just saying that as individuals, we need to reflect upon what we can do, because we're not going to deal with this until we all are sort of realizing we need to carry some water on this issue. So that said, looked some of this stuff up. It's going to be hard for me in this coming year not to look at every single one of the issues that we discuss without putting it through this climate emergency filter. So just kind of a heads up, and thank you for listening.
Hey, no problem, Brad. Thanks for sharing, Brad. I appreciate it. And I think the environment's important to all of us. You might want to talk to Mandy and Eva and get involved with the environmental subcommittee. I think they'd love to have you.
Well, I would agree with Brad on all of his points, and really, you know, being accountable as a city advisory board as well as the city, you know, being more about it, not just talking about the mitigations that we need to put in place to offset that. But one of the things that we're going to try to do is we're wanting to propose the environmental subcommittee as a permanent subcommittee for the board, so that we can start addressing some of those issues and provide some inputs to the city to see if there can be opportunities to help address those global warming and climate change issues that our community is on the front lines. You're absolutely right. We have cliff erosion, we have sea level rise, we have increase in temperatures. The heat index is going up. We have methane in our, in our at the local dump. There's so many opportunities, and we need to advocate for that for our community. So I agree with you 100%, Brad. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Any other non-agenda public comment? All right, seeing none, we are going to go to our government reports. And I think I saw Monique there. So let's go to District 2 and Monique. Are you there? And can you give us a report?
Yes. Hi. Good evening, everybody. So I just want to begin recognizing the fact that there is some incidents that occurred over on Rosecrans last week. We are working with the transportation department to look into the data for that whole corridor. We're also been in communication with the police department. We've been aware that there's been some traffic enforcement on Rosecrans this past week, so we hope that it continues. We don't know really what the cause is at the intersection because it is a signaled crosswalk as well as a signal intersection. So I don't know if there's small improvements that could be made to just make it a little bit safer, if there's any lights that could be installed, or if the lighting needs to be brighter in the area. So we'll be working on that in the next couple of weeks, and hopefully we could get to a solution where pedestrians are safe in the area. But we also need to recognize that sometimes these incidents occur because of human behavior. Drivers aren't being aware, pedestrians aren't being aware of their surroundings, and our message is to make sure that when you're driving, when you're walking, to be safe, especially in a intersection like Rosecrans where it's heavily trafficked. So I'll be continuing to give updates as we get them. I just wanted to start with that. Next is that May is Water Conservation Month, and the city is encouraging people to implement new ideas on how to conserve their water. They do have some rain barrel rebates that they offer to residents who are interested. I'll go ahead and link the page if you are interested in learning more about water conservation. And this week, the City Council did extend the outdoor dining program. It's been extended for 1 year. July 13th, 2020 is when it will expire. In the fall, this planning department is going to go ahead and bring forward a new program that will make it permanent. So we'll be looking forward to that, and it'll be upon the City Council to approve it to make it permanent as well. Lastly, I want to just highlight that the budget has been was heard again today for the May revise. The mayor went ahead and presented his May revised budget to the City Council, and that was the full restoration of library hours. So that is very exciting because they were going to be cut significantly for this whole budget, but now they have restored them as well. With that, I think I covered a few things that has been happening at City Council. OB Pier, they are going to go ahead and repair the pier. That was a really good news. It should be open by summer, which is very exciting. The council president is going to continue to push and work for funds to make sure that we replace it, we rebuild it to make sure that it is safe for future uses. Well, with that, that concludes my updates. Are there any questions?
So Monique, let me ask you quickly. I got a report today from the city that says that the City Council is not going to meet in person until September. So, and people always ask me when the planning boards are going to meet in person. Do you have any update as to when you think planning boards and libraries will be open for meetings?
It would probably be with the same timeline as City Council is meeting, so possibly September. I could double check with the department to see what they're at with that. We haven't heard anything about the planning boards to date.
Okay, if you hear anything, if you could check in, let me know. I'd appreciate it.
Okay.
Okay, anybody else got a question for Monique? I see Nicole's hand went up quickly. Go, Nicole.
Great, thanks, Fred, and thank you, Monique. I really appreciate the updates on Rosecrans, and happy to hear that your office is looking into that one. Were there any updates on West Point Loma Boulevard, the resurfacing from Nimitz to Sports Arena, basically, the last segment?
I know Nimitz is funded through the Route 209 fund. I had to actually just looked at what like intersections, but I know that it is funded.
Well, Nimitz is up for a new slurry seal. It's West Point Loma Boulevard that we've been inquiring about. And as background, 45 years ago, we actually had community support to put West Point Loma on a road diet and have it slurried. It's been on the resurfacing list for years, and now it's been removed. It's not currently in that city budget list that I saw as of yesterday at ATI. So I'm very, very concerned. I've tried to have this conversation with your staff and would love to have future follow-up and updates on that.
And we were told to, with that 209, it would include West Point Loma Boulevard. I just have to actually confirm exactly which which sections of it, because I know Nimitz is and West Point Loma Boulevard, but we just haven't got the full confirmation from the department.
Yeah, I would love confirmation, because on streets.sandiego.gov, it does not show West Point Loma as being a resurfaced street.
And it may not be uploaded at the moment since they're still working on it possibly, but we can confirm if that is
okay.
What that
okay, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
All right, any other questions for Monique? Okay, thank you, Monique. Next up, we're going to have Rachel Grandino from Assembly Member Chris Ward's office. Rachel.
Hi, everyone. Pleasure to be with you all today. My name is Rachel Grandino, and I'm with Assembly Member Chris Ward's office. It's been a busy season in Sacramento. Last month, our policy team researched hundreds of bills that were debated through the community process. And this month, the Assembly will be taking under consideration the fiscal implications of those bills. Currently, we had, or just recently, we had 7 bills on suspense. 6 of those went through the Appropriations Committee, and those will go to the floor this shortly in the upcoming weeks. If you would like to see a summary on our bills, our legislative package is located on our website. The May revise was released from the governor's office, and within that, there was an announcement of over $200 million allocated to the Employment Development Department, as well as funding for programs addressing homelessness and many other issues. As always, if you were having any issues with any state-related agencies, EDD, DMV, ADC, all your acronyms, please feel free to send me an email. And with all of that said, I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions for Rachel? It looks like you're clean, Rachel. Thank you for the update. We appreciate it.
Of course, I'll put my information in the chat box below as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Tracy, I just want to check with you. Do you have anything from Ocean Beach?
I don't think so.
Okay. Okay, good. And I know that I talked to DK. I don't know, is there anybody from Midway on the Zoom here? Because DK was going to come and give us an update on Midway. I don't see anybody. I don't know. Do we have any? I don't know if we have any other government representatives. Are any government representatives?
I'd like to comment that Gia Balash sent an email with her report that everyone can read. I believe she sent to the board. If not, I will forward.
Okay. Yeah, do that. Perfect. Okay. With that, we get to the bread and butter, and we are going to project review. There we go. So, Joe, you're up with the 952 Rosecrans Street potential historic resource. Can you give us your thoughts on that?
You bet. Thank you, Fred. I see we have 15 minutes for 3 projects, so we're going to have to be a little quick here.
Okay.
But the first project is extremely interesting. It's a house at 952 Rosecrans. It's also known as the Shell House, and it's a beautiful, beautiful residence. It was built in 1913. It's a colonial revival home, and the owner of it, Mr. Kutsky, is with us and will give a presentation. But basically, he is working diligently with our group, Ocean Beach Group, various women's organizations, and all in and has done extensive research on the house, its occupants and ownership chain and so forth. And he is attempting to register it as a historic residence. And of the, it's one of the a handful of residences that we feel does qualify for historic designation. I've prepared a letter basically as a recommendation of the ARC Review Committee or Project Review Committee to present to the board this evening to hopefully have a vote on to approve to send to the city and to SOHO, which is Save Our Heritage Organization. So with that, Kyle, you're up. Why don't you please explain briefly what you've got here?
Okay. First, I would just like to say thank you all for having me, and I appreciate this opportunity. And what I just want to try to do is I'd like to switch the camera so I could give you a shot. I pulled up a presentation I have on my computer. So since I don't have administrator rights here, so let me give this a shot and see if it works. So you can kind of see what see the home as I'm
Kyle,
talking.
you can screen share.
Yeah, just hit screen share,
Able
Kyle.
to screen share. Go down to the bottom of your screen and you can screen share.
You know, I'm on a. I didn't think about that, and I'm on a different.
Okay, no
I
problem.
can bring it up.
Can you see that? Okay.
Yeah, we can see that pretty well.
Does that work good enough?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So a very brief background about myself is my name is Kyle Kutzka. I'm from grew up in San Diego. Lived here my whole life. Went to high school here, then went to college, joined the Marine Corps. And after I was active duty in the Marine Corps, got out of the Marine Corps, moved back home, and have since been working as a firefighter for the city of San Diego. And I'm also a reservist in the Coast Guard now. As soon as I got home from my end of active service in the Marine Corps, I lived in La Playa, Point Loma neighborhood where this house is located. This is on the corner of Talbot and Rosecrans, in case you aren't familiar with it, but I bet most of you already know it, but from seeing the picture. And I purchased the home about a year ago. Probably every time you've looked at it, you think, oh, this place is historic, and it seems probably, fairly like slam dunk, like obvious thing, it should already be, or something like that. At least so I thought. And when I bought it, I was surprised to learn, it wasn't, or when I was in the process of it. And so I started investigating, and I started learning more and more about it. Now, what I'd like to share in the format that I'd like to do is I'd like to kind of like walk you through my experience, because I think it's been pretty neat, and I'm going to try to make it as quick as possible for you. So what I discovered immediately was this home was associated with Ingrid Croce. Ingrid Croce is in the, as I learned, is in the San Diego County Women's Hall of Fame, and is renowned for many things, but I'd say her greatest claim to fame is, and the reason the hallmark reason she's in the Hall of Fame is for her contributions to the revitalization of downtown San Diego in the 1980s. So I started learning about Ingrid. Ingrid owned my home for about 10 years, actually in this time period, which is key to the historic designation, from 1979 to 1988. Ingrid bought my home at the time with a mentor of hers named Dr. Gabriella Myers, who actually has a resume that would probably, that could challenge all the accomplishments that Ingrid has made in her life and in her own right. Being a doctor, was a consulate for consul general for Costa Rica. She's on United Nations. Commissioner. She's a professor at multiple universities here locally in San Diego. She was the first woman to be on a board of directors in a bank. She started the first women's bank in San Diego, and I could go on and on and on. She's a mom, a wife, like the list goes on and on and on. Very, very, very impressive. Again, to like, you know, to even match the accomplishments of Ingrid, I would say, in many rights. So I'm learning this, and I'm saying, wow, this is pretty interesting. I start to build this this presentation to turn it, you know, to turn into the home historic, and I'm focusing really on Ingrid. Well, as I talked to the city staff, there were a couple major potential roadblocks that they brought up that they would not be. They thought the home would not be eligible or likely to be recommended for designation by them to the board, which is really what puts me here before you today. And working around some of those obstacles, I talked to Soho, and they recommended that I reach out to the community members, and thus here I am before you now. So the main things is, you can see from the picture, hopefully, well, I'm sure you can see it, is the main obstacles that kind of stand in the way is if you look at the second level, there's a balcony, and where the balcony is, there's a you can kind of see the outline of the top of like a French door, and that was not initially part of the home when it was built. And this is probably the number one obstacle that's that stands in the way of the home being designated as historic. Now, one thing that I found out much later, which was made it even more ironic and interesting, and to me almost like validated this change that was made in a very interesting way, was that Ingrid Croce was actually the one who's on the permits as the designer, builder, and owner, who had her fingerprints all over this particular change, who is one of the people that I'm suggesting, or that I'm recommending that her name be put on the historic designation. So so I'm thinking, like, you know, Ingrid Croce and Dr. Gabriella Myers, this, you know, so on and so forth. And I'm compiling all this information, putting together this report. And then I learned something very interesting from one of the, I'm gonna scroll down just so you can check out some other pictures. And so these are some of the older pictures. So you have a kind of side by side of what the home looked like in 1913. You can see it pretty much standing all by itself right there on the bottom, and see a little bit of what the neighborhood was like on the bottom right. Now, as I'm doing all this research, I talked to Kitty McDaniels at the Point Loma Trails Association, and she basically helped me discover that the initial owner of the home that was built, her name was Eliza Smith, or Eliza J. Smith, as I had already known by doing my homework and looking in the city directories. What was really interesting about that J is that the J was a Jennings. So Eliza was one of the Jennings siblings, and she was the sister of Frank Jennings. Frank Jennings, as you all probably know, was one of the biggest developers in real estate in San Diego in the early 1900s, even late 1800s and early 1900s. So as I discovered more, Eliza actually lived in my home from the day it was built until 1943 when she passed. Eliza was a charter member of the Point Loma Assembly, which is a women's club, which you're all probably very familiar with as well. She was one of the first members, one of the original charter members, the only member to be there at the 25th year reunion. There's a million articles, newspaper articles that kind of document her involvement in the community and the assembly and so on and so forth. So she, and being on the assembly, a charter member of the assembly, she was in the group of people such as women such as Dr. Charlotte Baker, and Frank Jennings' wife Inez, who were all really pulling for women's rights and trying to build and establish women with a voice in the community. And that's part of what the assembly was all about since the day it was established. So here I have another really interesting surprise with Eliza Jennings being associated with this house. And unfortunately, her husband had died soon after they own the home. And so she was the principal owner of it for about 35 years. So then I'm learning more and more. Well, only to be, I find about her kind of activism in the community. And then I learned that I start learning more about her brother, Frank. Well, Frank was, before he came to San Diego, was a senator in Kansas, and he was elected in 1884 in December. In January of 1885, Frank had made a motion as a senator of Kansas to begin a committee for women's rights in politics. The measure was a tie, so it didn't end up getting put into legislation. But why that became significant to me is because Frank actually owned the land before the home was on it. Frank sold this property to his sister and his brother-in-law for $10 in 1909. And so then when I started putting this together, I started noticing this home has an incredible history of and a real legacy from from when it was a dirt lot of women's activism, women's rights. It was a living memento of the women's suffrage movement, as women in California got the right to vote, and then in 1911, and then in 1920 when it became ratified into the Constitution. And this is all part of while the Jennings family has been contributing their piece to San Diego, especially Eliza. She's living in this home. I since also discovered that.
All right, Kyle, I think we've got the drift there. So,
okay.
John, do you have a question?
Yeah, I presume obviously that he's focusing also on the age of the home and the style of architecture. In the interest of time, I'd like to move that we support the application.
Okay, and we got a second from Margaret. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
It appears to be unanimous to me. So there you go. There you go, Kyle.
All right. Well, thank you for your
keep talking.
support.
You might not get it.
Brad, I do have a question.
Sure.
Presently, the letter is addressed to the Historical Resources Board. It's been suggested that I also copy it or address it to the mayor's office and the city council. And it's also been suggested to me from members of SOHO that I separately address it to them. So I'm not sure how I should procedurally handle this.
I think Paul, do you have a thought on that? You're on mute.
Sorry. You should probably send it to SHPO as well.
Okay. So should this be one long list of addressees on the letter, or should I prepare it as separate documents to numerous entities?
Typically, we have a long list of people we address them to. And so if you put all the addressees on there, or you have it a main person and CC to everybody else, you can do it that way. And then I'll if you send it over to me, I will sign it and send it back to you as a PDF.
Okay.
All right. We are.
Good job, Kyle.
Great job, Kyle. I'm really pleased that you want to get this house to be registered as historic and preserve it indefinitely.
Well, thank you. Thank you again for hearing me. And
Thanks, Kyle. Good luck. All right, Joe, you got the Harris Companion Unit?
Yeah, so briefly, the Harris Companion Unit is a project that's been before us a couple of different times over several months. It's a process 2 CDP. And essentially what the applicant who is with us is Danny Lamb and the owner want to do, Natalie Harris, want to do is to build a rather large companion unit on the back of a lot on Coronado Avenue. What's interesting about it is it's a rare lot that has an alley on 2 sides and the main street Coronado on the 3rd side. It's a fairly slopey alley, but the site is relatively level, and they're essentially putting a companion unit atop an existing CMU garage that is tucked into the hillside. It lends itself quite well to both its location and the site. So the architecture of the project is quite nice. They've used some interesting materials, and it received a 4-0 vote for approval at this previous week's our project review meeting. So with that, Danny, do you want to say a couple things? And then board members, do you have any comment or questions? You're on mute, Danny.
Yeah, okay. Can everybody hear me?
We can hear you.
I can share, I have a PowerPoint presentation that I can share with all.
Okay.
So I'm going to share my screen. You guys can see that?
Yes.
The
Yes.
Harris residence. Okay, so so here's the presentation. Here, let me. So, like Mark said, the scope of work would be a companion unit that we're originally had submitted as an ADU for 1,200 square feet of livable space. And it's atop an existing garage over in the rear portion of the lot. So here's the complete property on the screen, and the main house has been existing there for a number of decades now. And in the back, we have an existing garage, two-car garage, that's a CMU built into the grade. And over that garage, we're planning to put a single-story companion unit with 2 bedrooms, an office, and 2 baths, and just the living spaces like any typical house. The exterior complements the existing, I mean, goes with the existing architecture. And here you see the existing garage down below, the grade where it slopes. Obviously, we could see on the side alley elevation where the alley is and slopes down into the other alley axis, which is a corner. See here, and here are the 3D view renderings of the new home. It's tucked away in the rear part of the house. It will be, it won't really be in the vicinity of the front portion of the house, but we have also accommodated parking for the main house, which is existing. Within its own apron and entrance to the front of the property. That's actually the original. The original garage was actually in the front portion of the house. The rear garage was built at a later time, and therefore we're keeping it for accessible parking for either properties. The owner, our client, is going to be residing in the new home in the back, and we're looking forward to getting this project approved and built hopefully this year. So that's why we're doing this review with all of you guys.
All right. So if we get out of the screen share, then maybe let's see if people have any questions. Okay. Tina, do you have a question?
I do. Okay, so first off, thank you very much, Mr. Lamb, for giving your presentation. I just want to clarify one thing. I get your project and it looks beautiful, and I see you're keeping with the community aesthetics, but I heard you only say parking for the front house. What about the up house in the back?
Oh, the garage.
Yes. So what are you going to do for parking for the? I guess you said the owners are going to live in that part of it, but what are you going to do for that parking?
For the rear portion of the house?
Well,
or
maybe all of the
the
house.
companion union? The unit in the rear is gonna use the garage down below. And the front house is gonna use a parking space that we have in the front existing, where the original driveway is currently.
So each unit is gonna have 2 spaces or 1 space each?
We're only required to have 3 spaces total on the property. So we provided 1 in the front. There's actually room for 2, but technically, you know, as far as making it work on paper, we left 1, and we do have 2 in the back. So we're required 3 parking spaces, and that's what we've provided. That's what we
Okay,
have
and
existing.
the 2 in the back is the existing garage?
Yes, correct.
Tina, the
Thank you.
situation is such that the garage is so far removed that I doubt it was ever used for the primary residence. The primary residence has on-site parking just off of the street. It's a little peculiar, but it's been existing and I think for quite a long time. So the likelihood is that the new companion unit will use the parking in the garage because it's essentially attached. Whereas I doubt that the residents ever did. Again, it's a long block or a long lot with a fairly significant slope away from the primary residence. So it's more like where you would store a car than use it, leave it overnight.
Thank you. I was just asking a question.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sam, did you have a question?
Yes. Does the new structure in any way alter the drainage patterns that exist currently on the lot or would produce any new unexpected drainage issues?
No, we are actually building on grade. It's going to be a raised foundation. So there'll be close to no grading, aside from digging the footings and maybe moving dirt around for the new build. But no, we have not affected the drainage of the lot. But we are also we also have a drainage plan in mind to where drainage will be drained into planters or like a designated basin or drainage ditch on site before it hits the street stormwater system.
Okay, Corla, do you have a question?
Yeah, I just have a couple comments. We've seen this project several times in project review earlier, and then I think you guys had some cycle issues. The city, they were back and forth with the city. The height is good. It's 24 feet. The setbacks are okay. The garage parking was an issue, but that's all been resolved. What's interesting about this project is the main house is 1,378 square feet and the companion unit is 1,200. And this is the first time that we've seen a project like this with these numbers. And this is what we're going to start seeing and going to start happening. They're within their parking limits. It just makes a single family lot a dual family area now. The committee did vote to approve it. Joe, was that a unanimous? Do you remember?
It was unanimous, Corla.
Yeah, so she's well within her rights, and it is a nice project, but it's interesting from a historical standpoint, if you will, as we just haven't seen something quite like this so far.
Corla accurately pointed out, everyone, that times they are a changing, and this is sort of going to become the new norm, we feel, and it is within both the dictates and intent of the city and the rights of the applicant and Natalie.
Okay, do we have a motion then to approve the project?
Move for approval.
Fred?
Okay, Sam? Yeah, but do we have a second? Robert, are you a second? Okay. Paul, do you have a question before we vote or a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that Mark Krensick raised issues that I think that we should at least give some thought to. This really completely violates all the design standards in the community plan. The plan seeks to keep parking out of the front yard setback. It doesn't really provide. We have one residence there now with 3 parking spaces. We're going to have 2 residences with 2 parking spaces. Mark brought up these and some other issues. And as you said, this is kind of the world we're going to be living in now because of the strictures handed down by the state. But it's not a development pattern that I think we really want to see perpetuated if we had anything to say about it, which we just don't any longer.
Margaret, do you have a comment?
I do really quickly, and I agree with Paul. We really have to, although the committee votes to approve the project, we definitely have to look at these projects on our own. We are a coastal community. We're not a very big community. And if we approve one of these projects for one, we really have to, if we don't feel comfortable with setting the bar and the standard for these types of projects, we really have to take action in these little small advisory boards. So I would encourage the rest of the board members to really do their homework before coming to these meetings, just to make sure your vote counts.
Well, all right, do we have any other comments?
Yeah, may I make one more comment, please?
Sure, go ahead, Joe.
I understand and to a large extent agree with exactly with what Margaret and Paul said. But I think there's a broader discussion that could be raised here, and that is, what is our charter to do? What is our mission to do? What are our responsibilities? And under the rules, the way they are presently written and are being modified on a frequent basis, I don't think we can take a stance and say, yeah, we understand and it complies, but we deny it for this or that. We have precious little that we can say about most of the projects, other than that they work with the height, or they work with the FAR, they work or don't work with the parking. But I just think that we as a board have to be thoughtful in our presentation of projects as they go forth to the city, so that we have a consistency and so that we are both respectful of the community primarily, but also of the rules that we're given to work with.
All right, Paul, did you want to say something else?
Yeah, it reinforces the point that we really need a new community plan, because the policies in the existing community plan we're not going to be able to enforce. And if we're going to have any voice in shaping how our community develops, we need a plan that recognizes the current realities. And our plan is what, 1997?
It's age 7.
Yeah, it's just so out of date, particularly given the new state laws, and that we really need to focus or put some focus on a new plan.
Well, Paul, you come from a planning background, and I don't happen to know, but do you happen to know if there is in the works a new community plan update?
No, when I was on the board previously, we pressed and pressed and pressed on this, but even though we are one of the oldest community plans, we were not, and I don't know our status now, but we were not a high priority with the city for a revision, or other than city sponsored amendments that weaken the policy of the plan. There have been really no discussions about making this a higher priority.
And even if they did, it would take years before they could recraft a plan.
Exactly.
Well, but then again, it's not true, because I see other communities like Ocean Beach and Midway make amendments to certain sections of the plan constantly. We're just kind of behind the ball on making those amendments and suggestions. We have for traffic and transportation to our community plan. And at the time, where Conrad was representing District 2 and sat in many of our meetings with our suggested amendments. So that's something that we should consider, is suggesting amendments to our community plan to our District 2 representative or whomever we need to speak to. But other community planning groups are doing it.
Have any of our suggestions, your suggestions, Margaret, been adopted?
Listen, I agree with you, Joe.
No, I'm not asking that sarcastically.
I agree with you completely. But yeah, I agree with both you and Paul. We definitely, this community plan is so outdated and ancient. It doesn't fit with the new climate action plans, even traffic transportation reports that are being provided to us in our communities. But again, we really have to think about this as a board. We got to just stick to what we have, as you mentioned, Joe, in our current community plan booklet. But this is stuff we've got to look at and take action. I don't know. I've seen one of the planning boards create an ad hoc committee for looking at the community plan and working in that ad hoc to suggest edits.
Let me rephrase my question from earlier. I guess more pertinently, how did Ocean Beach manage to get the adoption accomplished for their minor community plan amendments, whereas Point Loma hasn't, or Peninsula hasn't? What did OB do differently?
It took them 13 years to get their community plan through.
I remember last year, they got a lot of the stuff they asked for granted on the community plan.
All right, well, I think that the community plan discussion has been very productive, and I think that, you know, project review, long-term planning, and if we need an ad hoc committee, we can do that, and so everybody should think about that. But I think we need to vote on the Harris Companion Unit. So,
Exactly. I thought that was the whole point of this.
Sorry about getting sidetracked, everyone.
Yeah, so, okay, so I'm gonna call for a vote. All those in favor of the Harris Companion Unit? Raise your hands. I've got one. Oh, I'll read them. I got Angela, Joe, Mandy, Matt, Paul, Robert, Corla, Sam. That's eight in favor. All right, any opposed?
And add Nicole too in favor.
And Nicole, okay, 9, okay, 9. And I got Margaret and Don against, 9-2, passes 9-2.
Mr. Lamb, thank you for answering my question.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Congratulations, Natalie.
Thank you.
All right, Joe, can you do the Nicholas property then?
Yes, gladly. The Nichols CDP is also a process too. It's down at 3029 Nichols Street, which is right off of Rosecrans, just down from the Shell House a few blocks. And it is a application to demolish an existing single-family residence, which is fairly understated. I frankly didn't recognize it when I drove there, even though I've probably driven by it 1,000 times. And the applicant is requesting to, again, raise this house and construct in its place a 3,872 square foot house with a 634 square foot garage. It's situated on a slightly sloping uphill street. At project review, we discussed a number of parameters, things like view corridor obstruction, which it does not appear to have, view obstruction from residents, adjacent residences, which it does not appear to have. And we had a fairly good discussion about the architecture itself of the project. It's a beautifully designed house, and we think it's sensitively sited on the house. Again, it was approved 4-0. And Julie Urban is the applicant or the architect on behalf of the applicant. And she's on the Zoom call. Julie, would you like to say a few things? And would you like me to screen share it if you cannot?
I actually think I might be able to screen share.
Nice.
We'll try it. Thanks for reviewing my project. I can give you a real quick overview. Like Joe said, it's a single family house. It's on the corner of Nichols and Rosecrans. There's currently a 2-story house there right now. We're proposing to put a new one. The new house is about 700 square feet larger than what's there. Let me pull up the site plan. Here we go. Can you see it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Perfect.
All right. So I added color to the site plan just because I think it's easier to read. And because there was, this big oblong thing on the Rosecrans side of the property, I wanted to make sure you saw that it was a pool and not like a mobile home or something. So anyway, so that's why I added some color. This is Rosecrans Street here. This is Nichols. The siting of the house is basically the same exact position that the house is sited, that the current house is sited. And that's basically because it's kind of the only place you can put the house. I mean, the city's not going to let us take a driveway off Rosecrans. It's too busy a street. And here on Nichols Street, there's all kinds of utility equipment here at the corner. There's a power pole here and then a guy wire. So the only place to put the driveway is right here at the very back of the lot. The owner wanted a swing-in garage. They didn't want the garage door facing the street at all. So we have the garage or the driveway here. You swing into the house or into the garage, and we wanted it attached to the house. So, you know, the house just kind of is there. There's some benefits to siting it kind of where the old house is. We're pulled back from Rosecrans, so we don't have the noise off of Rosecrans. And like Joe said, the neighbors to the north and to the south that currently have views to the city and to the bay past the front of the current house, they will still have it, because the front of this house is basically the exact same place that the existing house is. So should maintain those views. The views from this lot are pretty nice, obviously looking towards the city, looking towards the bay, and looking towards the ocean. We put all the main living spaces on the second floor to kind of take advantage of that. So in reality, we actually have more square footage on the second floor than we have on the first floor, which was a challenge for me because I did not want the house to feel top heavy. And like I said, I have more square footage up there. So what I did was, let me try to pull up the elevations, hold on. Oop. Do you see the elevation?
Yes.
Okay. So basically what I did is I needed the house to have a pretty substantial base so it doesn't feel top heavy. So the base of the house is stucco because I wanted it to be heavy. And instead of just doing the ground floor, I took the stucco up. I'm gonna zoom in on the front elevation. This is the Nichols side here. So I took the stucco up past the floor level and I took it about halfway up the second floor. So I get even more of a heavy base. But I didn't want the whole house to be stucco. So above it, I put some board and batten siding, and then the back of the house has some other siding just because I needed some detail and some scale. And then the roof, I decided to use a standing seam metal roof. And basically, you know, there are a lot of really large houses in this La Playa area, and yet they can still look residential. And to me, the only way to do that is to kind of do I think the roof line is what keeps large houses from looking objectionable, in my opinion. So I have a standing seam metal roof on top. It's a nice substantial material. It adds a little bit, I think, of a modern flair to a house that we're still trying to keep kind of classic and kind of fitting into the neighborhood. Obviously, I meet the height, I'm under the height and the floor area ratio. I'd be a fool to come to you if I didn't, I can't imagine. The city has asked the client to dedicate 4.5 feet of their property along Rosecrans back to them, because currently there's a sidewalk along Rosecrans in that block and it stops at this property and it doesn't go any further. So they've asked the owner to dedicate some square footage back so that they can continue the sidewalk for that entire block, which the owner is happy to do. It reduces the square foot of the lot by about 337 square feet, but we're still well within the limits of the floor area. So do you have any questions, or would you like to see?
Julie, if you go out of the screen share, then we can see if people have any questions.
Oh, okay.
Do we have any questions? Looks like a beautiful project to me.
Thank you.
All right, do we have a motion to approve?
I so move.
All right, Paul Webb, motion to approve. Margaret, a second. Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, it appears to be unanimous. There we go, perfect.
Julie, it's a beautiful house. I look forward to seeing it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
11 to
Thank you
nothing.
very much.
Perfect. Thank you, Julie.
You're welcome.
All right, moving on. We're going to informational items. We're gonna, Corla and Joe, thank you. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Your first meeting as project review leader. You did a great job.
One down.
Exactly. Good
35
job.
to go.
Seamless. 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 Great job. Great job. All right, Corla, what's going on with PCP?
Okay, well, before I do that, I'd like to just make one comment about projects quickly. And this comes directly from our former professor who's no longer on the board. And one of the main statements that Jim Hare, as a former planner, used to remind us of is that property owners have rights. And all of these projects, whether we like them or not, when they've been voted through the committee, they're well within their rights. So we need to keep that in mind as well. I get what Margaret's saying. I get what Paul's saying. I get what Mark brings up, but we do have to remember property owners have rights. So thank you for letting me say that. I'm going to go through this real quickly. The city is removing all required parking for ADUs in multifamily zones within a transit priority area. And I just received the agenda for CPC next week, and this presentation will be on that agenda if anybody cares to attend CPC. There seems to be no code enforcement during the pandemic. The city says their salaries are not competitive and they can't keep staff. So this is something that needs to be addressed. I can bring up the OB presentation on short-term rentals about the quality of life metrics that they want to introduce to the city. And this is not on the CPC agenda. So Margaret, we did a lot of work on that. And I think we do have time to continue that. And this will come again before CPC, but we want to be ready before that so we can support that. There was a park PRC presentation. The city's committed to the point system and they will not make any presentations to the planning groups. The parks group does not like this. They're talking about adding amenities and they're not explaining to us what those amenities are. So this is going to be an issue and a fight, I think, for our parks committee in advocating for our open space and our park space, because this point system, I think, is going to deprive us of a lot of what we need for a good quality of life in San Diego. The next item quickly is Senate Bill 330 passed in 2019, and it limits development projects to no more than 5 hearings. If it goes over that, they are automatically ministerially approved. So it is unclear if the planning group meetings are included in this number. Apparently the city attorney's working on this, and this is all part of this business with the planning groups and how the city attorney has interpreted our role. But anyway, the state level action could limit our involvement. So we need to pay attention to that. As far as the 2021-22 legislation, last month at CPC, it was announced there are about 2,500 bills now in the works. Senate Bill 9, Tony Atkins, eliminate single family zones. You know, I think they've already done that with this ADU business. SB 10 is Wiener is a pro density bill. He wants all projects ministerial. Now that doesn't mean that all these will pass, nor does it assume what iteration they will be passed if they are passed. They go through a lot of things. The other announcement, 2 more things. ECAL, there's no in-person date yet. So be sure and do the ECAL online. And I haven't done it. I didn't need to do it. But when Paul did it, there was no way to get a certificate because they're using the 2019 ECAL format. So if you do your ECAL and you can't get a certificate, screenshot your final completion page and send that in. And I think Mandy is keeping track of that, but we have to send that to the city and Mandy. And then the other thing, it goes back to virtual DSD, and everything is, as of June 1st, everything is going to be online only, virtual only. You need to sign up if there's any notifications you want to get. They're calling it constant contact, and that I can put that in the chat. And we all need to sign up for any kind of notifications because it's all virtual now. And then as far as coming up on the agenda, I think for next CPC, is just the ADUs or the parking, parking requirement things. And that's all, that's what they're going to be discussing. So if everyone likes to join on that. That's it.
Well, Corla, thank you. A lot going on at CPC. Does anybody have any questions for Corla? Okay, Don, go ahead.
No, she made the remark that property owners have rights. I believe that the community also has rights, and Joe kind of raised this point. We're an advisory board, and I feel common sense is at play. If a project is a horrible project, I feel it's my duty to say so. The rules may support a project, but if it's a bad project, I'll speak my mind. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Don. Joe, comment?
I agree with what Don just said. And in the previous years I've sat on the project review committee, I've tried to do exactly that. When projects, in my opinion, may comply but are just ugly, I say that to the applicants and say, you've got to work with this. Again, we're kind of hamstrung a little bit, but I've definitely stated my opinion that there's a lot of poorly designed boxes, and that's not what we want to see. It alarms me how bad some of the houses, even along Sunset Cliffs, are. They're just not worthy of the value that they bring and the place that they sit in the world. So we're trying.
That's why you're the right person for the job. I think the rules are the rules, but I mean, we get a lot of things done through credibility and being reasonable. And so if we can talk to people and try to make projects better through reason, that's a great thing. Brad, do you have a comment?
Oh, just briefly. I'm not sure what percentage we actually see of the places. I mean, how many times you drive around the community and you go, we never saw that property. And it just seems kind of arbitrary what is considered ministerial, the coastal, at one point I know that it's like process 2 and above, but it's, what do we see, 5% of the properties that get built in the point? I mean, and I agree with Don and I agree with Joe that, we've said no to, the stucco boxes, the contractor pop-ups, the ugly ones. So anyway, just an observation that we have little input.
I think we have some, and we got to stay on it. So with that, we got to keep moving forward. So I think Mandy's going to give us we got an update and we had a little interaction with the city. So Mandy, can you give us an update on the Cannon Street Pocket Park, please?
Yes, good evening. Back on April 29th, Fred and Dawn and myself met with Monique Tello to get a status update on the Pocket Park that's over off of Avenida de Portugal. And so there's been some issues with regard to the communication from the project manager as far as where we are with money. And with the project being about 7 years old, it is unfunded, a portion of it. And so there are 2 options that Monique has presented to us in this meeting. And we've asked and invited District 2, the city basically, to come and give a presentation to the subcommittee and to take it to the board. Because what they're stating is due to the funding deficits, there's 2 possible actions going forward. The first option would be to build out the park into 2 phases. And with that, the first phase would be about $550,000, and that would include the playground area. That would be the large area for that first phase. And then along with that, we would potentially talk to a nonprofit. It was offered at San Diego Parks Foundation to possibly work with them to promote the portion that we haven't received funding for and to compensate for those missing funds. So with this, with these two options, Dawn has done such a massive amount of work over the years, and I want to call that out, not just as a community member, but as a volunteer. He's given all these hours to this park. So I want to thank Don for his commitment and his tenacity, especially dealing with the city, because, when you're trying to get the details, that, sometimes it takes a while to get the information. So if we were to build out into 2 phases, one of the risks that would come from that is that the budget for the remainder of the park would increase, and we may not be able to finish that second phase right away. But the thought is if we do break it out into 2 phases, that at least we can get some of the work done, and maybe we can help excite the community a little bit with the work that gets started in the first phase, if that's something that the community decides to do. The only risk, again, is that, if we start it, then the second phase could potentially be stopped, because it's not completely funded. But that would be better. The thought is that it would be better than it just being a blank slate and sitting there while we're continually trying to build the funds for that. Some of the concerns that Dawn had is with the existing funds that we do have, and we're still trying to clarify the exact amount that's in the fund, but we wanted to ensure that the money that has been raised and received does not get picked at with consulting fees or various, projects that the city has for the parks. And so we're still waiting to hear back from the city as to what that number is. But Monique has stated that the city, we've invited them to come to a future park subcommittee meeting either in June or July for them to come and present to the community for us to bring to the board with the decision for possible steps going forward. But that's all I have at this moment. Monique is no longer on the call, so we can ask if she has any updates. But Dawn, did you have anything else that you would like to share with the community?
You've covered the topic pretty well.
All right. Well, hopefully we'll get some more information and be on the lookout for the parks agenda. If they do reach out, hopefully we'll have a meeting in June or July.
Yeah, I thought it was good that we actually had a meeting with the city with Monique, and there's some new momentum and so on. I know the community supports that park, and so Parks, Mandy and the Parks and Dawn are going to follow up. And my recollection is I thought I saw an email that said that they had about $700,000 appropriated for it right now. So I don't know if that's right or not, but that's my recollection.
I challenge their figures. We need better communication.
Yeah, I that seemed lower than what we had thought was in the fund originally. So I haven't received any follow-up from that, but hopefully the city, once they come and present.
Challenging it, and let's get more money for that and get. But I mean, editorially, I like the idea of getting the thing moving forward so that we have a little bit of momentum, and then once we get momentum, we can get the park built. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mandy. But I think Corla wants to say something. But thank you so much, Mandy.
Corla.
Yeah, thank you, Mandy. I was impressed that Monique reached out to you guys. I think that shows something. And I remember exactly, I have it somewhere, God knows where, but the original figures in the PFFP back in the day for that park were 880,000. And I remember that specifically from another time, because when it was first presented to the board, David Dick pitched a hissy fit about that park costing that much money. Now it seems to me that it went to 1.2 and to 2.5. I don't know where it's at now, but I'm really pretty sure about that 880 in that original PFFP that was set aside for our park thing. So that's all.
I would agree with you, and I think that's why that email that came from her showing it 700,000. It was short from the initial money that we got from Barnard Elementary. That was a huge sum of the money that came in. So it's less than the 844,000 that came from that fund. So again, we need to get down to the bottom of where that money's gone. If it's consulting fees or other fees, we just need to make sure that we protect it. Because, we do need to complete that project, and we do have a deficit of parks in our community.
Paul, did you have a comment?
Yeah, you know, the way this works, having been the manager of a capital improvement project or a number of capital improvement projects over the course of my career, the way this works, anytime any city staff person touches this project, they're going to bill to the project account. So there may have been more money, but over 7 years, anytime anybody does any work of any kind, if it's a phone call or a meeting, they're going to charge to this project, and the money just starts dribbling away.
Yeah, Paul, that's a great point. And we talked to Monique about that. And part of what we wanted to do is work with Monique and get the community lined up exactly what we want to do, give the city some direction before they have a bunch of people working on it so that we don't waste money with multiple people charging that. Go ahead, Don.
Yeah, by the way, whatever the amounts are, we've been unable to pry them loose to date. This park is completely designed. It is ready to go to bid. Any potential obstacles have been solved. So the situation is basically money.
Yep. All right, we're going to move on. The Riverwalk, Pete had to leave. He's going to be on the agenda for June. So we are going to go to the board action items, and we're going to start with Corla and the reimbursement of PCPB expenses.
Okay, let me get up. I got to thinking about parks and got worked up. Okay, I need approval on 2 checks. We approved Paul's webmaster up through May, and then I have requested reimbursement for our Zoom expenses for these meetings of $143.88. And then I realized that in our $500 stipend, we still had $100 left. So Paul Grimes has been very generous to us. He didn't charge us for the months that we weren't active due to the pandemic. And I just think that we should give him that $100, and it pays him up until the next fiscal year kicks in. So I'm requesting a check in the amount of $100 for Paul Grimes, and then the $143.88 to me for reimbursement for Zoom expenses. And after those checks, our balance will be $258.93, and I will be submitting an invoice. We have to put everything on one invoice now. So I'll be submitting an invoice to the city for a reimbursement for a $500 a year stipend that we get. So after that all takes a month or 6 weeks, we will have more balance in our account. So I'd like to make a motion to approve a check expenditure to Paul Grimes for 100 and one to myself for 143.88.
I'll second.
Okay, Robert, any further discussion? All those in favor? It appear, okay. Looks like everybody, Don, are you gonna, everybody, yep, unanimous. Okay, there you go, Corla. Good job, 11-0. All right, Mandy, you're up. OB Park rec letter support. You're unmuted now.
Okay, thank you. All right, so the parks, at our last Parks and Rec subcommittee meeting, we had Nicole Lueno, who is the chair of the Ocean Beach Planning Board's Park and Recreation Ad Hoc Subcommittee that was established. And I'm also a member of that subcommittee as well as a voting member. So she came and presented to the group. The last year, the OB Planning Board Parks Ad Hoc has taken a look at several of the Peninsula area parks and gathered up and voted on several recommendations that they have. Some of these parks include Ebers Park, Saratoga Park, as well as Collier Park, which is in the Peninsula Community Planning boundary, as well as Dusty Roads and Robb Field, which are in the Mission Bay Planning Group boundary. So she came and presented the group with their recommendations for Collier Park, and she wanted to see if we would provide her with a letter of support. And our committee went ahead and voted with for a letter of support for the OB Parks Ad Hoc Committee recommendations. And I have it here on the screen, and it just reads, the Peninsula Community Planning Board is in support of the Ocean Beach Planning Board Parks Ad Hoc Committee's recommendation as outlined in Enclosure 1 to the City of San Diego Parks and Recreation, advocating for improvements to Peninsula area community parks. And again, this is just a draft letter at this moment. Being that it was presented to the Parks Subcommittee, I did recuse myself from that vote, but it did pass. So I'd like to open it up for any questions from
Okay,
the.
let's get out of the screen share.
Oh, yeah. One moment. Thank you.
And Mandy, I stepped away for a second. You said it passed out of committee. What was the vote in the committee?
The vote in the committee was based on the attendance. It was 2-0, and there was one myself. I recused.
Oh, Tracy, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that you guys understood that this whole package was presented to the OB Planning Board in April, and it was actually tabled. So the fact that it's being presented to a bunch of different organizations right now is a little out of order, if you ask me. And I'm just going to read you the motion so that you guys can make an educated decision on what's going on, because there was a lot of comment on these plans, and we have not, as a park subcommittee, had a chance to go back and deal with a lot of these comments. So I'm going to read you the motion, and then you guys can decide what you want to do. But so the Ocean Beach Planning Board voted to table delivery until we can integrate community plan elements and make 2 separate presentations, one for OB planning area purview and one for the parks, in which we do not have purview but would like to have a voice in planning. And that was a 12-0-0 vote. So there was a lot of people who felt like the community wasn't really surveyed as well. There was also a lot of conversation about how we didn't involve other community groups before we created this presentation. So I just wanted to let you guys know the history of this. And I really personally believe that it has been shopped around before it's ready. So that's just my opinion. And I know, Mandy's just going through the process, and, Nicole probably presented it and the whole deal, but this presentation as it sits has not been approved by the OB Planning Board. It is not finished. So anyways, that's just me speaking my mind.
Thank you, Tracy. And I know this is a work in progress. I know that there is still feedback on some of the items, but with regard to this request, being that some of the parks, such as Collier Park, were in the Peninsula area, it was recommended that they go to each individual board to get buy-in. As they're making, OB Planning Board Ad Hoc was making recommendations on parks outside of their boundary. And so with that, I can be clear if we want to just talk about the Collier Park, if we need to tweak it and say just regarding Collier Park in general, so that we don't sign off on the OB Parks Ad Hoc and then there's some, substantial changes down the way and then people change their mind. So
yeah, my concern is that you guys are going to talk about stuff and have different changes, and I just want to make sure that whatever you guys want for the park is done and it's put in the presentation. So don't think of this as, you have to approve it as is. You can still make recommendations, and, we can, we want to be able to submit this as a full package, but it's more than likely going to be separate. And I just want to make sure that you guys are aware that you can make changes. There are, options, that kind of stuff.
All right, so I do have some concerns of us voting to approve something that was tabled by Ocean Beach, but I saw Dawn's hand first. So Dawn, did you have a comment?
Yeah, the peninsula is underserved in terms of parks. I'm afraid, Tracy, and all due respect, that if we divide in little fiefdoms, nothing is going to happen. On the peninsula, we have 4 different masters, if you will. The NTC Park is run by downtown. Things like Rhodes Park are Mission Bay. Ocean Beach has purview over some in the peninsula. I'd like to point out to Tracy that Collier Park is under the jurisdiction of OB. Mr. Hastings of the OB board claimed it was Peninsula. It is run by OB, but I think unanimity is important. We support the concept. If the Ocean Beach wants to tweak their own plan and pass it, that's fine. But I think it was a well presented report, and I liked it.
All right, Margaret, did you have a comment?
I have to agree with Fred. It sounds like there's a disconnect between the two communities, and if the letter is going to address OB, I would prefer that it just come from the Peninsula Community Planning Board. I have a question in regards to the deadline. What is the deadline for this letter to be constructed? Can we have multiple conversations before we vote? I mean, can you give us a little bit of background on your?
There was no deadline on it. The last meeting, when it was presented to the OB Planning Board, like Tracy stated, they wanted to get further buy-in because, again, the parks were not within the boundary of OB Planning Board. And so when I reached out to Nicole, she came, provided a presentation and gave a high level of each of the improvements, mostly focusing on Collier Park, because we wanted to make sure that we were in support. The idea of us providing future recommendations, I do want to applaud Nicole Ueno because of the way that she has formatted the ad hoc. She's gone through each individual park and the boundary and she used the park master plan, the point system that's kind of been in limbo. So it'll be interesting to see how that manifests down the way. But, it was just to present and get the buy-in from the other planning boards. I didn't realize that it was completely tabled. I thought it was just tabled until she got that, she made connection with the Mission Bay Planning Group and with our planning group.
And I'm sorry, Nicole Ueno, is she a OB Planning Board member?
Yeah, she's the chair of the Parks Ad Hoc subcommittee. And so really
Mandy, my suggestion would be is that we, we send a message, we tell Tracy, we're supportive of the park measure from OB, but I think it's premature. So my suggestion is that we would table it for now and send a message that we're ready to support it at the right time in the right place when the proposal's done. And then the park, your subcommittee keeps an eye on it and let us know when it's ready. Would that be okay?
I mean, that's fine. The only other recommendation I would have is if we would curtail it and then change the wording to be just specific for Collier Park. If we wanted to be very specific, I mean, that would be the one thing, because I don't want to have Nicole to come back and go through the whole process. She's already come in with giving the presentation. I think if we change the wording to be very specific to Collier Park and not all of the parks, it's not going to stop us from making recommendations in the future. As a parks, we can make any recommendation we want for our parks. I'd like to, kind of going back to how Nicole Ueno went park by park within the OB area, I'd like to do something very similar to that with the parks within the peninsula. So we can either table it entirely or we can amend the letter to be very specific to the wording to be for Collier Parks recommendations only.
So let me just jump in real quick, just to be like totally clear that the subcommittee was tasked with going back to the original plans that we presented and taking in more public comment, talking to more people. including the other community groups and getting their ideas and their feedback. Now, Nicole did that with you guys. She went and talked to you guys, the park subcommittee, but she hasn't really given the presentation to the whole committee, right, or the whole planning board. So you guys may have changes that you would like to see. And if you're going to support, if you're going to submit a letter of support for just Collier Park, I would suggest adding those suggestions and those ideas in that letter and saying that you'd be willing to support it with whatever suggestions and ideas that you guys have. And then that's totally fine. But I just want to caution you because, like I said, the motion at the planning board was that this was not ready. So and I know Nicole is anxious to get this moving, and bless her heart, she is going around and sharing it with everybody that she can. And I'm just telling you what the planning board voted, and so it's your call.
Thank you, Tracy. Don?
Paul Webb had his hand up. Paul, do you have a comment?
Yeah, is a motion to table in order?
I think that it is.
Then I move that we table this. I'm not ready to vote on this because I don't even know what was being proposed for Collier Park. I haven't seen anything about this until.
It's on the second page of the letter. If you look,
I don't have it in front of me.
Oh, I shared the screen.
The meeting.
Say that again, Paul?
It has not been distributed prior to the meeting.
Yes, it
I saw
has.
what you just put up on the screen, but I didn't get a chance to read it before it disappeared.
It's on our website, Paul. And
I was not aware of that. I think that any letter should be.
I'm going to second.
With all due respect, Mandy, I do believe that any letter we're being asked to endorse should be distributed to the board before the meeting.
It was.
I have not seen it.
It's posted on the website.
I didn't know it was on the website. I didn't know to look for it.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Let's go ahead. There was a motion to table, and I heard Sam Love seconded that. I guess we can go to discussion. Don, you have something to say?
Yeah, I do. I'm quite comfortable with tabling and whatever. There's no reason to make this a real feud. We were kind of supportive of the concept. I think whatever is proposed eventually is strengthened with more groups buy into it. I would like to point out, Tracy, that I genuinely believe that Collier is an ocean beach park. It is not a peninsula park. I'm on the Point Loma Recreation Advisory Group. I'm a member of it, and they tell me that Ocean Beach does the maintenance and so forth for Collier Park. So
all right, well, with
I
that,
have no problem tabling.
Okay, all those in favor then of tabling this this motion? Say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Anybody opposed to tabling? All right, we're going to table this. Mandy, keep us posted. All right. And then,
What are we having her do? Bring back a revised letter?
I think
What would you guys like to see?
I think we would like to see, I don't know if it necessarily even needs to be a revised letter, but I think that we need to have Ocean Beach complete its process, work with Ocean Beach. We're supportive of the parks. And once Ocean Beach completes their process, then we can do a letter of recommendation. All right, Mandy, and your next project.
Sure, let's go ahead and I'm going to share the screen with, a moment while I. All right, so this one is from the Traffic and Transportation Subcommittee. And this one is was brought to the subcommittee. Nicole Burgess presented on this. And we voted to approve this request to amend the community plan and to designate a portion that we describe in the following areas for a bicycle boulevard. Nicole, are you on the call? Is Nicole Burgess still here?
I am. Thank you, Mandy.
Hi, did you want to go ahead and present on any of these items?
You're doing great.
Okay.
Go ahead. You're fine. I thank you for taking the lead.
Okay, sure. I'm going to go ahead and just read the letter out loud, and then we can discuss after. So the Peninsula Community Planning Board requests that the city of San Diego designate a bicycle boulevard as an updated amendment to the community plan. The bicycle boulevard would connect Liberty Station from Lanning to Rosecrans West, right on Post Street, a left on Locust to Nimitz Boulevard. These streets are in very poor condition and should be reconsidered for resurfacing. And at that time, it is recommended that traffic calming, signage, and street marking improvements be made to support safe walking and biking in the area. Optional consideration is to make a right onto Newell from Locust and a left onto Evergreen to Nimitz. Space would be needed to create, space would need to be created through bushes with proper access, but this could be as a longer vision for improving this intersection, as Evergreen to the west has been reclassified to a bicycle boulevard already and would be the direct access. So that is what we're asking for. I'd like to open it up. I'll stop the screen sharing.
All right. Nicole, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, that pretty much sums it up. Thank you, Mandy, very much. And this is just from a personal writing experience. I come out of Liberty Station and can cut off quite a bit of kind of that fast corridor, Nimitz corridor that is, you know, something that I want to try to avoid. So this is a segment that I thought would be a great little bikeway for people going into OB from downtown San Diego.
And Mandy,
And I can answer any questions.
What was the vote in the traffic committee?
I believe it was unanimous.
Oh,
It was 7-0.
okay.
And
Paul,
it was unanimous.
Paul, do you have a comment?
You know, again, this is the first time I've heard of this. I just looked at the Transportation Committee website. I don't see this letter there. I don't see any background information on this. I'm not ready to support this until I get a chance to actually look at it.
Yeah, I guess that we probably should send the letters directly. I know that the letters were posted with the agenda on Monday on the website, but should send the letters directly to people too.
Right. I would be I can be sure to add that in the future. Before, when the agendas have come out, they've included all of the stuff from when you like send the agenda in the past, they've put all the supporting documents with that. And so when you make the call to bring the agenda items, we email you with those items as well as our agenda items. So maybe when the agenda goes out, that all supporting documents be included in that email to the board.
That's exactly what I'm asking for.
Yeah, and that's probably my fault, since I was, gone and I did it all remotely. I just sent the agenda and not all the attachments. But I know that. Joe, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I just think that with a letter like this, when you're describing routes verbally, it would be beneficial to have a little reference map attached to the letter. Language like left on Poe, right on this, whatever. It's easier to just look at something, but then I'm a visual person, so.
Carla, do you have a comment?
I have a question. I just saw that on the screen briefly. And you were asking if this were to go forward, which I don't think it is, but for a community plan amendment, because I think that might be a different process. Am I confused on that, Mandy, or?
I was working with Nicole on this, and I was told that a letter of recommendation or any amendment to the community plan can be done in the form of a letter. And that would be sufficient for that.
I think a community plan amendment is a heavy duty thing that should be taken up a little bit further, maybe in a different committee. I'm not sure about that.
So I'll just respond, Corla and Mandy, thanks for the question. So a few years ago, we've actually amended the community plan as far as classifying streets for different purposes. So because the community plan update is not in the future to be updated, this is the way to reclassify our roadways to make them safer for people walking and biking. So about 2-3 years ago, we classified Evergreen to the west from Nimitz, as a bicycle boulevard. And that just put it on the city's radar that if there was ever a resurfacing project, that they, would look at it from a bicycle boulevard perspective. And I agree, Joe, that a map would be nice to have with us. I'm sorry that we didn't put anything together. It is just a little route through some neighborhoods on the north side of Rosecrans, by the deli. So I understand that's, and Paul, I also hear you. If you guys didn't get to see this information, we can table it. It's not totally critical, but I also think it's important that these subcommittees, we are talking about it in pretty good detail. So, that's the time to really make those conversations. But yes, I appreciate all your guys' comments.
Well, I think that maybe that's right. If it's not time sensitive, that maybe we table this too. I think that it's a good suggestion. I think that Joe's suggestion of having a map to go with the letter would be very helpful because we want the letter to do something, right? We can send a letter, but if we send a letter and nobody does anything, it doesn't do any good. And then this way we'll do a better job about distributing the letter in advance to the board members. Paul, do you have another comment?
Yeah, and if the letter is going to be asking for is an amendment to the community plan, I think it should be agendized so we all understand what it is we're being asked to do.
Yeah, I think we clarified that, Paul, that issue, but I have no issue with wanting to table this. I would like to, I did appreciate Joe's recommendation on putting the map. I think it would make it very clear of what we're asking. So if you'd like to table this, it's not time sensitive. We can take it back and add more and tweak it and add more to the letter.
And not to interrupt, Elizabeth has a question.
Go ahead, Elizabeth.
I just had an information question. So I'm not quite clear what designating something as a bicycle boulevard is. And I know that corner, and if I were on a bicycle there, I would definitely want to be going around that corner, but I'm not quite clear which streets connect into Nimitz. If you're coming down from Ocean Beach along Lowell and you come into that intersection, I'm not sure which of those streets now connect to Nimitz in there.
So Mandy, and thanks Elizabeth for the question. And I think the map would really justify it and giving us some time for those people who are on this board to look at it. Locust goes right out to Nimitz. Evergreen does not. However, Evergreen designated as a bicycle boulevard and future vision for Nimitz and at Evergreen could be like potentially a roundabout. So seeing that this bike corridor could go through that intersection, that's high level, big vision. This is just to designate it that this is a preferred route to keep us off Nimitz. And designated it as a bicycle boulevard just means that they might put some traffic calming in that area. The traffic calming is not terribly significant in that back area. It's mostly residential, no cut through traffic. So it's really an opportune time to just put some signage up and let bicyclists know that this is an alternative to get up into OB than that corner.
And are you also thinking then that the street that doesn't now connect, that you could make a pathway that bicycles get through on it, but not cars?
Ideally, yes. Evergreen going out and having just bollards that let just cyclists and walkers go through.
Yeah, Evergreen's one way in and not going out.
All right.
So Robert, this is on the other side.
Margaret has a question.
Okay.
Margaret, go ahead. Quickly.
I just have a quick question. I call for the question, but really quickly, these committee meetings are important for attendance. I encourage all you board members to attend these meetings and you'll be well prepared for the board meetings so we can save some time.
Oh, all right. All right. So we're going to table that. We're going to table that one. And then Mandy, I think that you have a last action item to add some public community members to some committees.
Yes, I would like to go ahead. So we're going to go ahead and table that second item and send it back to committee. So that's good. Thank you. The final one is in the traffic and transportation. We did vote to approve our community members, and we voted to have Paul Grimes come and join as a community member. He's been a faithful community member for the traffic and transportation subcommittee, as well as Leah. She ran for election last in our last election, and she unfortunately didn't make it, but I would like to encourage her participation. So she has asked to join the Traffic and Transportation Subcommittee as well. So I would like to present that to the board to ask.
I'll make a motion to accept those two.
Second.
All right, do we have a second?
Second.
Paul.
Robert,
Paul,
okay.
second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? All right. That's
Now,
unanimous.
Fred,
You'll
in the
see
past, we asked that
agenda.
the new committee members send a resume over to the board. Are we still doing that or no?
I don't think, I mean, it's nice if you want to do that, but it's not required.
Oops, I did not do that.
Yeah, so it's not required. If they're good, you know, we know who, we don't need a Paul Grimes resume. We know Paul Grimes. So, all right. So the next item, I did actually put appointment of public members on the subcommittee. So are there any other committees that want to appoint public members tonight? Margaret?
You want to go first, Joe? You beat me with your hand raised.
It doesn't matter. Go ahead, Margaret.
Okay. Yes, I do on the Long Range Planning Committee, and I also had a question for the board. I have Paul Grimes. I'm so excited about him joining the Long Range Planning Committee. Cameron Havlick as well. He has been on the committee before and is an asset to the committee as far as the naval side goes. He provides us so much information. And then I also had an inquiry with Tracy from Ocean Beach and DK from Midway, which to me, I'm just giving you my perspective, would be amazing on this committee because of the discussions we're having with all these projects. However, it was brought to my attention that our bylaws play a factor. Tracy mentioned that OB Planning Board was able to get around that and add people outside their jurisdiction to some of their committees, which I love because these committees are dwindling and we need good representation. So I don't know what the board thinks. I read the bylaws. I had legal counsel look at our bylaws. It doesn't clearly state that we cannot have someone outside the Point Loma area join the subcommittee. It's very vague, the language in our bylaws. So I promise.
Well, Margaret, traditionally what we've done is we've officially appointed, like we would officially appoint Paul Grimes and Cameron, and certainly we invite somebody for Tracy and someone from Midway to attend. But the official community members that we would vote on would be people that live in the community like Paul and Cameron. So given the time tonight, you know, I think we should focus on getting them appointed, and then we can tackle and
I would appreciate that because I hate not allowing volunteers to be part of this committee. So
well, they're part of the committee. They certainly can attend and they can participate.
Well, I would like them to have votes too. Yeah. But we'll tackle that at another meeting. Is that okay, Tracy?
I'm fine with it either way. I was just bringing it up because of what the conversation was in the last, when you guys were appointing committee members before. So I didn't volunteer because I knew that was your stance on this board. So, you know, I didn't volunteer, but I would be happy to serve if you guys would have me. So, you know, either way.
So maybe I'll make that an action item for next June meeting if the board's okay with that.
Okay. So for tonight,
can you make a motion? Now I'd like a motion for Paul Grimes and Cameron Havlick.
For project review.
No.
Second? Is somebody going to second?
No. For long range.
Oh, sorry. For long range planning. For long range planning. Okay. Do I have a second for Paul Webb?
And we actually voted as a committee to get these guys on.
Okay.
Wait. Is it for long range?
For long range planning. All those in favor? All right, we've got long range planning. There we go. Perfect.
Thank you.
All right, Joe, do you have any public members that you want to add to project review?
I would like to nominate community member Mark Krensick to join Corla, Brad, Paul, and me on project review.
Okay, do we have a second? Paul
Second.
Webb? All those in favor? All right, Mark is officially added as a community member and a great choice.
Joe, are you not showing me on the list anymore?
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Okay, I
I'm
just want
so
to make
sorry.
sure. I know I missed last meeting by mistake, so.
I apologize. And Robert.
All right, and Mandy, do we have, we took care of Leah. Anybody else, any other committees that want to add public members?
Not at this time. I'm still trying to make connection with Delana Purcell to see if she would be interested in serving on the park subcommittee. But if you know of anyone on any of our committees, if there's community members within our boundary that are interested in participating, feel free to send them my way for any of the subcommittees that I chair. I would be more than happy to have community participation where it's needed.
Okay, so do we have any committees that want to make any further reports tonight? Go ahead, Mandy.
I just wanted to let the board know that next Wednesday, the 26th of May, we will be hosting the environmental ad hoc subcommittee for the board. And so that'll be, look out for the agenda this weekend. That'll be on Wednesday at 6 p.m.
Okay, Margaret?
We had an amazing long-range planning meeting. We had about 24 people there. A lot of our own board members that are not on the committee attended. I appreciate you guys. Sam, Robert, Matt, myself, our committee members, and Tina. Tina, you couldn't make it, but I mean, I would just like a quick overall brief from my committee members, because I talked too much, on how they felt about the meeting. We discussed some really big projects, you guys, that, I mean, are coming down the pipelines that's going to affect all the communities, which Riverwalk SD is an amazing presentation. I think we spent a lot of time on that with questions. Robert, Sam, I mean, Matt, they asked some amazing questions to the speaker. I really wanted him to present tonight. We'll get him on June's agenda. I'm disappointed that Navwar Muska and I think it's Gregory or something, they spoke at Midway last night. They gave a full-fledged presentation that was super concerning. Lots of concern on that project. So I hope we can get them, I've been in contact with them, hopefully next month, Fred, we can get them on the agenda.
Yeah, I've been in music, it's music.
Muska and then the other gentleman, her boss. Yeah, they need to present to us. And then Measure E Sports Arena, we got an update. It's completely on hold. They don't know the future of that. And then we touched base on transportation contributions to the climate crisis. Matt brought this up. He's also a committee member, and this was incredible. Like, we really need to keep this on our radar. So Sam or Robert, Matt, do you guys have anything else you want to add in regards to that meeting?
Well, I think Riverwalk did a great job, and I think some of the things that we're highlighting with, the emissions, transportation, bike lanes, the accessibility, I think you really hit on. Well, the golf course, yeah. Riverwalk still says it's going to stay there, but he kind of said no as far as 18 holes. And maybe there's some tweaking that needs to be done for the river channel, but I think it was a good meeting.
Matt, you got something to add?
Matt?
Yeah, just a couple quick points. In following up on Riverwalk, there was brief discussion about as golf course would be phased out, they would phase in native vegetation. So I just wanted to throw that out as an idea. What Brad brought up for non-agenda comment in terms of what we're looking at for climate crisis. One opportunity we have, and we can explore it in some of our committees, is to when we have opportunities to influence vegetation, natives will operate as far more efficient carbon sinks than a lot of invasive plants. So that's one avenue we can talk about some of this stuff. And then the kind of climate crisis and contributions of transportation, as Mandy brought it up. Yeah, this was just the start of a conversation, and I invite anyone who's concerned about this, I'm happy to talk about this, and have some follow-ups that we then bring to the committee for some future conversations about what directions we want to see our board try to influence some of these climate contributions. So thank you for that.
Awesome.
All right, I'm going to make a short report on the airport. I want to let everybody know that the ANAC reviewed the Part 150 recommendations and they approved them and sent them to the FAA for further action. In addition, we also approved a nighttime flight procedure that's new. It's never actually been officially put in place, but it was we fought to make sure that nighttime flights did not go over Ocean Beach. So I'm glad we were successful on that. And so we did that. So those were two good achievements by ANAC. And just for Paul, I want to let you know, Paul, I talked to Sam, and Sam I think is interested in airport issues. I'm interested. And so we might want to think about having an airport meeting if you want to put one together. And I think Paul Grimes is interested in being a public member on that. So.
And I should have.
And Nancy Palmtag
now.
keeps on asking about it too.
I should have done this before now, but I do need to get up to speed and form a committee. So I'm happy to incorporate all the people that you've identified as members of the committee, and I'll come back with a recommendation for that at our next meeting.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. All right.
And Fred, did you
Carla?
hear what I said about Nancy?
Yeah.
Nancy Palmtag.
Yeah. So yeah, Nancy Palmtag is another person who would like to be a community member on the airport.
If you can give me their contact information, Robert.
Okay, I sure will.
And the good thing about Nancy is that she just served on the Citizens Advisory Board.
And I know Nancy, I just don't have her
perfect. Okay. All right, Corla?
Okay, I'll get that to you.
Comment. Paul Grimes put something in the chat about letters. I don't know if y'all can read it real quick, but I would like to be sure that if we're going to post any kind of letters before meetings, that they are clearly identified as draft. Do you see that in the chat?
Yeah, I'm here. I just said that if you do want these letters put up, you can send them to me along with the agendas for each subcommittee, and I'll post them on the agenda line for those committees.
Yeah, but if they're draft, they just need to be identified as draft.
Yes.
I think that's serious. Yeah.
I've done that's happened in the past, but not every time.
Yeah.
So
I apologize for this one. So I will be in town for the next meeting, and so when I send out the agenda, I will also send out the draft letter. So Mandy, I apologize to you.
No, it's no problem. But it was also like in the traffic committee, they were not put up before the traffic committee meeting as well. Sometimes I think they also belong on the separate committee lines as well, if possible, if they're available at that time.
All right. Well, with that, I want to thank everybody for a great meeting, and everybody keep up the good work. And I just have to say, I guess I'm going to go get a Mai Tai. So we'll see you guys all next month. And if you have any questions or anything that comes up, let me know. But a great meeting, and I will see everybody soon. Aloha.
Very well done. Aloha.
Okay, stop recording.